So, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the CXO Masters Academy. Our first session for the CXO WatchTower Firesides, powered by Comtel, is hosting two seasoned industry experts today from the IT industry. I'd like to introduce my guests for today, Mr. Faisal Anwar, Chief Information Officer, UBL, and Mr. Khawaja Tanveer Saleem, Chief Information Officer, United Energy Pakistan. I'm Akshat Tariq. I will be your host for today, and today we will be delving into taking a deeper dive into the tech leaders' priorities that have obviously shifted since last year, focusing on new technology adoption, focusing on digital transformation, hiring requirements, and of course, the workplace culture that significantly changed in the last 1 year. So let's see and hear from them how their organizations have adapted and faced their most difficult challenges in the past year, as well as this current year, which, to be honest, seems no different than it was last year. Tanveer Sahab, we'll start with you. Um, the response to COVID and challenges faced by RE departments is something that all of us have really, had to be on our toes to really keep going. How would you, of course, share about organizations around the world? How have you scrambled to meet the new challenge of bringing the entire workforce online and enabling work from home capabilities? And of course, with entire countries or cities under lockdown, travel restrictions, and others. What are the several challenges for IT leaders here?
Okay, thank you, Aksa. Thank you very much for inviting me and for this particular session. It's been now more than a year. I recall it was somewhere around 20th of March or 23rd of March when the first lockdown was imposed last year. And then we had, soon we were faced in the Ramzan. And then we went into the long time of a couple of months that went through and through, on and on, going on. And so far now, it's been almost 12, 13 months. We are into this pandemic-driven working from home, or the hybrid environment has actually evolved in. So obviously it was challenging to start with. Everything has got the opportunity, everything has got some sort of setbacks that come up. I think I started with the opportunities. The biggest opportunity, I think most of the IT leaders will be sharing it on all the forum, is that actually it has been the key enabler for the digital transformation across many organizations. We have been talking about digital transformation for long, but the way we have seen the things evolving, especially in the banking sector, especially in the contactless operations, especially in where we want to do more and more online stuff. When we talk about e-commerce buying, we talk about buying the Sana Safina suits by the ladies from the website as against going to the mall and stuff like that. So those things, the environment is actually enabled. The entire ecosystem was enabling it, and it was evolving it. So now, as we stand a year older now, so we are more learned, we are more experienced, we are now more used to these type of things. So and now we've got lots of data from the last year to actually plan the things better. We have been talking about digital transformation in each organization. It's part and parcel of the IT people to drive through. I think one thing that has actually created more impact in case of COVID-driven pandemic was that the pace has increased. Still, the challenges remain the same. There used to be cybersecurity issues. Now the pace has increased. We have never seen so many outages of Google and Microsoft and even Trend Micro, and the vulnerabilities coming up so often. So the pace has increased. Similarly, this increased pace has actually put up greater challenges. Uncertainty has increased. We have learned more about the VUCA environment. We have seen it ourselves, and we've seen it. So in a nutshell, if I brief what has we gained in the last year, is a lot of experience of working in an environment where we were pushed through suddenly, and now we are more prepared. So most of the organizations across the globe are talking about it, and they're planning to get into more of a hybrid working environment, wherein there will be a combination of the on-premise, on-office people, as well as in the working from home combination, which will be the more like coined as a new normal. And I think that new normal will be there in Pakistan as well. Plus, the challenge remains the same in terms of the virus. It's continually mutating itself. It's coming up with newer challenges. We are now into the third wave. Yesterday had been a tough day. We have seen 200 deaths in a day, the highest ever since the pandemic has driven. There are 5,000 plus people in the critical condition. So, but now these things are becoming, unfortunately, a norm of it, and we have seen the people not following the SOP, and those things will continue on and on. And I must say that this is not just in Pakistan, it's been there across the globe. You look around Canada, there's been lots of protests taking place against the lockdown. We've just seen Turkey just gone into the strict lockdown for the next 3 weeks. Uh, from IT perspective, yes, it was challenging. The key element initially was more about the provisioning of the laptops, provisioning about the internet connection, provisioning about the VPN connections. Those three things were, I think, were the core element. Then the people start learning about how to have a home space. There's a big challenge that the people who don't have a big houses and separate rooms, and there were time when if there are two kids in the house, they are having the online schooling, and there's a parents also having their online working from home taking place. So there were challenges on the internet part, challenges on the power side, because like when the K electric or on any electric supply goes down, then there's always a disturbance and distortion. And what would you have learned over this day or this one way? These are things that we can overcome easily by putting up more investment, putting up more robust solutions. One key area that has emerged out, and I think that I'm sure Faisal will also talk about that, is more about the mental wellness and the healthy and the well-being of the people. Because talking to the window of a screen, a 13-inch screen or a 19-inch screen on a desktop or a laptop, cannot substitute the real interaction we used to have. If you ask me, I really miss those moments when there's some issue that is always eating in your head, circulating in your head, and suddenly you stuck up some idea while washing your hands, and then you suddenly come back and call up your two, three people around or sit on a table and say, okay, this is the idea. What can we do about it? Now, if you come up with an idea, it's a challenge to get the people on Teams or Zoom. Someone is there, someone is not there.
Look at their
Those things
schedule,
of
work around it.
creativity do hits us. So, and it's getting difficult. But now we're used to it, but now that actually has a significant impact on the creativity of the people and the mental well-being of the people. And on the flip side, we have seen huge, what do you call the positive aspect. I think Faisal will touch more about it on the digitalization in the banking sector. We
Absolutely.
haven't seen that level of innovation that took place in the banking sector in one year that we have seen the last in this particular year that haven't seen in the last couple of years.
Absolutely. So, Faisal Saab, in addition to what I asked earlier on, the response to COVID and challenges faced by the IT department, just Tanveer Saab, he talked about technology leaders, they had to prioritize revenue generation over cost savings and also figure out how to assist employees in navigating, the disjointed return to normalcy process, which was about to begin in a way that, it has to be seamless also. Because at the end of the day, it comes to your department if there is any kahin bhi, and especially in an essential service like banking, which cannot really afford to go down for even 5 minutes. So on that side, can we hear from you?
Thank you. I think a lot of ground is being covered by my colleagues. So pandemic has hit humanity, and I think that's one of the biggest challenge that it has brought in is around humanity. A lot of things that have actually used to be resolved by a face-to-face interaction cannot be resolved now because you have to sit in front of the screen and talk to people. So that primarily is one of the biggest challenge that we have seen. It did have an impact on how people behave. The stress level we have seen has gone up because the human interaction has reduced substantially over a period of time. Where at the same time, I think it has brought in a lot of room and a big room of opportunity along with it. So if we park one side of the humanity loss that we're going through and the challenges that is on one side, it has bring in a huge opportunity on the ground. We were in the process of transformation and adoption of digitization. But with this pandemic, I think everything was put in a fast forward mode. So a lot of ground is being covered. That brings a lot of responsibility on the IT people and being the leader as the CIO to make sure an uninterrupted business continuity becomes a challenge, while at the same time you need to make sure that you are able to extend the digital trust to the people. So digitization is not as big a challenge as that you have to ensure that the digital trust is extended to the end user, because only then this mode and this change. So one change is by force and the other change is by adoption by will. By will, it only comes when you are able to extend the digital trust. So that is a role that we had to play in very, very extensively to ensure that in these challenging times that we are able to extend the digital trust to the people, so that uninterrupted services, whether that B2B, that those are banking services or those are any other utility services, or they are normal home shopping things. They have changed from the channel, from a physical channel to more on the digital side. So once that aspect is being established, we have seen a trend that now people feel more comfortable transacting on those digital channels. At the same time, availability of infrastructure has also become one of the key major things that we, as IT leaders, we had to make sure that remains intact and is available. Because a slogan that we used to make a couple of, I think, months ago, that bank anywhere, anytime, any device, has come to reality on a fast forward mode in a couple of months, rather than what was a thought process that it could take years to come. It has come just in a couple of months, or might be in a couple of weeks, that it has now the bank anywhere, any device, anywhere. And we need to make sure that the digital trust is established and the security posture of the companies are fully maintained. Without any compromise of that, this is being delivered to the end user. So to establish that came in as a challenge, but I think across the industry has been taken in well. And we've been able to deliver as an industry and as a country. I think we must stand tall in order that as a country we will also be able to demonstrate that we've been able to deliver that digital trust to our people.
So on that note, sir, would you like to talk a little bit about the emergency response plan, and especially that which came in from the IT department? I understand that the crisis management was handled by multiple sort of key stakeholders within an enterprise. But what was it like for the IT department to really navigate this?
Like I said, primarily, I think I tried to cover it under a broad brush, but now the question is a bit more specific. So
Yeah.
ensuring a digital trust which covers both sides, the consumer as well as the employee. That is the key fundamentals, because if you look at a traditional organization where you have multiple set of people who make the wheel spin, you have traditional workers who work as a light users, then you have heavy users which we call power users. And under the current pandemic, where we knew that these people cannot come in and we have to give them access remotely, we need to set up and establish a core infrastructure which allows a zero-day security, zero trust authentication into place, so that a seamless access to the infrastructure by maintaining the security posture of the company as it was in the past can be ensured. So that navigation was due, because in this, like any other disaster or any other challenging environment, where environmental factors are far more, things can be dealt differently. But in this scenario, because it's a natural pandemic and alhamdulillah, no climate damage or anything else or a collateral damage took place, so the life had to be continued as a BAU, which means everything had to be transformed fairly quickly. Where as an IT leader, I think we had to step up. We need to make sure that we revisit the architecture of an IT framework of an organization, redraft it, bring it to the agility that is needed, need of the time, and make sure that the flexibility is extended by maintaining the security posture.
So, Tanveer sir, would you like to add to this before we move on?
I think I would also like to pick up the one key word he used, that the Faisal mentioned about the agility. I think being more and more agile is something which is the most needed competency and the characteristic that we need to have for an effective remote worker. And when I say effective remote worker, I mean to say that this is something could be the yardstick in terms of for measuring someone's productivity. Uh, One of the key elements remains specific to the performance management. What will their perform? How will the performance be managed of the people who are working remotely or working from home? We are actually a nation which have got a significant lack of trust amongst each other. So generally, as a nation, we don't trust anyone, and there are certain reasons to that. But we have a lack of trust generally. And now, when we say we have a hybrid working environment, then obviously there need to be element of how well the performance measurement will be done. So agility will be one of the key elements. And I think that is something which will remain there for a long time now in the new normal. At the same time, we normally talk about technology part, wherein we talk about the VPNs, the infrastructures, the connectivities, the laptops, the hardwares, and all the stuff, which are again are the core foundation on which the entire structure is now being built, be it a bank or be it a normal organization, and the security and the stuff. But what's more important, I think, especially in order for the IT leaders to drive those innovation agenda, to drive the digital transformation, to drive that strategy execution. And the one key element is to be in the shoes of the business. And I think this is something which I personally coin it as a technology plus. Like we need to be technology driven, yes. At the same time, we need to be very clear about the business priorities, and we shouldn't be going to have the technologies for the sake of technology. So if certain version is being upgraded, then we need to see, because there will be a lot of cost pressure now because the overall businesses are not operating the way they used to work earlier. So due to those cost pressures, it's much more easier to put up a slash on any IT budget coming up or any IT initiative. So that IT initiative should be transformed not in terms of money, but it should be transformed in terms of the value it's going to create. Not an easy thing to do because generally when you talk about finance, they talk about numbers, and you have to convert that to value contribution by a particular initiative that you want to embark on and transforming it into some sort of a number thing. So that is something which is to be done by having a stronger business engagement, by being in the business shoes to see where it's hitting you hard, and then partnering with them very strongly. And when you partner with them, with the business, be the finance, be it supply chain, be it the HR, then automatically you win and lose together. And when you win and lose together, then if certain project or initiative is being slashed down, then you are very much clear that you have put the point front of the entire organization, and it's not making the viable call or commercial viability to take it forward. And that takes to another part of the conversation, where is it requires the trust based conversation, trust based engagements amongst the co-workers. I think Faisal touched a very nice word in the beginning about the humanity. That this pandemic has hit us as a humanity. It's not something which is specific to banks or FMCG or pharmaceuticals or so on and so forth. So now, and with the humans comes the behaviors part, and with the behaviors comes the trust part, and that's where we generally, as a nation, other than the part of crisis, we do lack. But yes, when the crisis comes in, we do come up as a nation strongly and want to help out each other. But there's a long way to go on that part because we do need to. We generally cut down on the processes. We are not process driven. We try to be more of a jugaad driven people. And we have seen the videos where the people sleeping in the ATM rooms because the AC is working there. So people go there and sleep and spend the nights there.
I think that's one thing that over time, I feel like everyone said that Pakistanis are so resilient, but during this pandemic, it's been tested in many ways that I think all of us were not even geared to sort of take on. But I think any challenge that's been thrown our way, we've taken it head on. And even when you're talking about professional setting, you're talking about personal setting, anything in a societal, in a social setting. So we really have taken on those challenges and fought it, whether it was through जैसे आपने कहा कि हम जुगाड़ निकाल लेते हैं उसकी या फिर हम उसको actually या factually उसको so
Actually, you're right. It might be a little bit of diversion, but just see what's happening with the students right now. They have been thrown into online classes for a year, and they are not used to these type of classes. We are struggling as a professional, and we took some time to adjust ourselves. But think of those students who are studying O levels, A levels, And these are people who are actually doing online classes. Leave aside those people who don't have the privilege to have the online classes because they don't have the laptops and the internet.
Absolutely.
But even those, last night, it has been a terrible thing because of O-level sessions and A-levels exam has to start from today, and there was a whole mess up because suddenly the announcement came in and the people were confused. And still now there are lots of things happening that why the A2 student has to give the paper, why are they not human and things like that. And you go to the social media, those Twitter handlers in the CIE and the Cambridge, and they're all themselves puzzled. They're trying to work out some solution, but it's too, what you just mentioned, we are thrown on certain things, then we work out some way forward for that, and that's the power of the resilience that we do have. And yes, we have a strong faith, and so at times we misuse that faith part and we don't wear the mask because we have a faith that nothing will happen. But that's the wrong part of it. But yes, that the faith sometimes also drive your belief system. And that's how you have to survive through these tough days. I recall we had the last session called Survive, Thrive, Revive. And with yourself, and I think there was Dr. Bari was also there, and he was talking the same thing. Each one of them, they spoke about the same that yes, we are resilient. Yes, we are powerful. Yes, we are perseverance. But there are always certain things that need to be done in a more organized way to go through those things.
And
Otherwise,
I think, and
those
the reason
spurts
why
of
we
things
also,
happen.
and the reason why we also want to have these engagements is to really understand that, okay, this has already happened. A lot of you had probably prepared for some sort of emergency response, but no one in their, I think, wildest dream had thought that during our lifetime we will see or witness or be a part of the pandemic, right? So whether or not you were leading an IT department, you had been a part of this, you've survived this. You've also had to have your entire teams dependent on you. Unko bhi, you were sort of like the facilitating body for it, or the department for it. On that note, sir, I think there were 2-3 things that you picked up on, and I'd like you to sort of continue talking about, pehle ye hota tha that most IT departments, they used to have these multi-year digital transformation efforts, like a 5-year plan and a 2-year plan. But obviously, with rapid migration to the cloud, we've seen over the last 1 year, we've probably seen more development and more advancement than we have in say the last 3 years. Due to several reasons, of course, COVID being one of the biggest ones. But how do you see that this will be a priority to also find people with the ability to foster that change management that you are trying to bring in? Obviously, the whole workforce model has changed and it's evolving. With it, the technology has also evolved. So how do you really, prepare for that accelerated digital roadmap within your enterprise?
Akshay,
I think is it for the Faisal?
So for both of you,
the question was for the Faisal or Faisal, you start off.
All right, thanks. So Akshay, I think one of the key important aspect that the way I am seeing it, because it's a huge transformation journey, is cloud or no cloud, that's one aspect to it, because transformation has to happen. But as companies, we need to pick up what is normally referred as a growth mindset. So that's technically a philosophy, a growth mindset, whereby as an organization or as an individual, you learn and then you unlearn and then you relearn something new. You need to make sure that you inculcate that culture into that organization, because we are humans, so we are built up in a certain order. So I was a child and I've grown, and then I've learned through my surroundings, and I have a learning pattern, and so that's normal human psychology. But the environmental factors keeps changing. So the growth mindset concepts tells you that you at a certain point in time, when you would like to learn new or acquire new skills, at the same time you also need to acquire a skill how to unlearn some of your old skills, and that gives you a rapid transformation journey, and it opens your door for adoption to the new fast moving changes around the world. So if you can inculcate that culture of growth mindset in your company, in your organization, and in your people, that would really help you leverage this transformation journey fairly quick. But I do want to emphasize one thing, because normally where in my experience, where things do go wrong, whenever people talk about transformation, they tag it to technology. Transformation is a cultural change to an organization than a technology on a standalone basis. Technology is a means to an end. Uh, but as long as you can transform the organization, you can transform the culture of the organization, because it's all about people. So you transform the people, then you transform the process, and then you go and touch on the technology. But normally what happens is, where things normally go wrong, we tend to pick up the technology piece because we find it much cheaper, because and we say that, okay, now that the whole thing is being transformed. Whereas what you have done is, you have just tried to change the means to an end, try to achieve that part, whereas the actual transformation has not been touched upon, which is the core, which is people. It is very important that while you're doing that transformational journey, you do the process re-engineering as an embedded part of that transformation journey. Automation needs to be taken out from transformation. People do mix up automation and transformation. Automation is a completely different subcomponent that can dovetail into transformation, but transformation is a large-scale program which cuts across the organization in horizontally and vertically, irrespective of where you sit in the pyramid. Everybody needs to be part and parcel of that. And while you get into that part, you need to understand this, that not everybody is going to accept that change on day zero. So you need to pick up the change agents within your company who's going to lead this change. Then there is going to be a second set of people who are going to follow this change. Then there is going to be a third set of people who's going to sit back and see that, okay, if this change is going to be successful, I'm going to jump the ship and I'm going to board, and I'm going to follow this change because I was too scared to adopt this change early. So you're going to have your three set of people who normally in an organization, leaders, who will say that, okay, hands up, I'm going to adopt this change day zero. I'm going to lead the way. You're going to have followers who's going to bring in slowly and gradually. But at the same time, as organization, as leaders, you need to make sure that all three set of people reach the other far end of the tunnel. Because if you leave people behind, your transformational journey will not be completed. Because we need to understand transformation starts from people and it ends on technology. It's not the other way around, that you start with technology and end with people. So that's my 2 cents on that. Tanveer, you wanted to add?
Thank you, Faisal. I think just building on a very nice foundation that you have developed. Akshay, if you recall, we used to have one particular terminology in the earlier days, the pre-COVID days, what you call the stakeholder management. I think that stakeholder management still applies the same thing. And I think when Faisal talks about having a transformation aspect, it's more about how you manage your stakeholders. And combining it with the question that you ask, okay, what are the type of capabilities you want to see in the people going forward or in your teams? I think there are 2 skills which I feel are the absolute necessary. One thing is the storytelling. I think we as an IT need to communicate very effectively, and I think very effectively with the people. And that's where when I say people, it means the stakeholders, and which means the business, which means the functions, which means the users, which means the consumers, which means the customers. But yes, we cannot just talk to them. We need to communicate them more properly, and we need to share the vision, or what you call there has to be that the vision needs to be so compelling that they should see the path that you want to lie in front of them. And storytelling is the heart of anything, any change that you want to drive within any organization, especially if you're trying to go ahead with an idea which is unproven. Because then there's no market or no data at the back of it. So generally, it's something which goes hand in hand. So one of the key things is the storytelling, and secondly, thing that I personally see is the agility that I talked about. We are living in a world where the technology is changing at a much faster pace. It's getting more faster, it's getting more agile, it's getting more smaller, it's getting more smarter. And you deliver certain thing, then you are up for the next innovation. You deliver one thing, you are up for the next innovation. So you need to form the teams, which should be able to adopt very quickly. They should have a mindset of flexibility. Apart from being agile, they need to have a mindset of flexibility. And as this takes you to the third question that you just asked. There were classical times when we used to have an IT strategy, and this is a 3-year roadmap or a 4-year roadmap in front of it. No harm in having the IT strategy for the next 3 years or 5 years right now as well. Nothing has changed. But yes, you need to have a stronger, what you call the compass-driven approach, wherein each year you sit back and you review what trends have changed, what market dynamics have changed, what technology has changed, have you taken the proper stock take of that, and then you adjust your strategy just like the way you adjust your direction using compass. So you have a very clear vision where you want to go for as part of your transformation. You need to put down a strategy to follow and achieve that vision. But just putting up a strategy and leaving it behind is not something which is required nowadays. Coupled with a mindset of flexibility, coupled with the element of storytelling, we need to have a strategy which is more lively, live strategy, need to be reviewed, need to be lived, need to be reworked each year, just like a compass, and adjust those initiatives, adjust those targets, adjust those cost investment that you want to make in that, and then you actually move forward. So, as I mentioned, the stakeholder management used to be there earlier. It's there now as well. The pace has changed. We want things to be done just like that because things are becoming more and more uncertain. By the time when we are about to settle and we are about to open up the offices, we are struck by this third wave, and then now people are thinking of the lockdown again. And this is something too strange. Students have been working all the way through for the exam. Just the night before the exam, they've been asked that no exam till mid of June, and now they're confused at which paper will happen, whether the teacher assess grades will take place, and so on and so forth. So the pace will continue to be there. And on top of it, those technology challenges like having VPNs, having connectivity, having cybersecurity, having uptime, having resilience, having so on and so forth will continue to be there. But yes, what can, in my view, and I might be wrong, but based on my experience, what can help us sail through more effectively will be the technology plus part. And the plus, I mean the having stronger business engagement, having stronger business connect with the teams. After all, the business sponsor, the project sponsor, the project managers, the teams, they're all human beings. So we need to have that stronger human connect with them to foster that partnership with them. And once that thing is placed, again, as we talked about the trust earlier, then the things will be more like a smooth sailing, hopefully.
So on that note, sir, in the coming months, many departments, as you said, prepare karte hain, to sort of settle down with the SOPs or, returning to the workplace, and then something else comes up. And maybe for another few months, this looks like the situation that it might be. How will departments, over time, we realize that departments do need to weigh the cost savings against the increased maintenance efforts to determine the net benefit of the hybrid approach, right? So we're looking at the re-examination of IT budgets. Budgets has always been a pain point when anytime we've spoken to any CIOs, taking it and making a business case out of it has been a challenge throughout. But now, of course, we've also understood that there is no place for technology just for the sake of technology, and everything that you bring in with to your organization, it has to have, it has to gain business owner buy-in on the metrics and engage with people who obviously own the process. How would you, of course, address this as like specific problems? And employees, obviously, they're also feeling more empowered and they're trained to use it. And now then you have to shift them back into the office. And a lot of people are now comfortable working from home. So with all these shifts, how do you re-examine your IT budgets and lay that out for other CIOs to follow? And any one of you can go first.
So, okay, I'll take this first. So Akshay, generally, again, when you talk about the business, money matters for us and for the organization. So there's no rocket science in that. What's important is what is the value being generated out of that investment, and that's where the your storytelling comes in. When you prepare a business case for any investment, it could be a couple of $1,000,000, it could be a couple of $1,000, but the story or the business case should be compelling enough to generate the value, or to you should be able to paint the picture how the future will look like. And that's an art of storytelling, and that's something where generally IT people miss out, and that's something we need to focus more and more. How we immediately go into the shallow of we being attendees and we need to work over the computers. But again, we need to go out of that mindset and actually speak to those people directly who have to approve those budgets, and at the same time have a compelling story for them. Okay, what will that investment give them? Whether it's going to be the peace of mind, whether it's going to be mental wellness, whether it's going to be the mental well-being, whether it's going to be the greater efficiency, whether it's going to be the more productivity. You have to talk to those people into the same their terminologies to help that business case move forward. Um, despite all budget cuts, there are investment going on. There are the people who are driving. We see the share prices of Microsoft and Google and Amazon and Signal and all those going up because more and more people are using it. And now, when there's an outage of Google or a Microsoft something, then it becomes a nightmare for the people to live without those things. Which means that people are using it, people are paying for it. We can't live without the Zoom right now, and there's something which is there were lots of cybersecurity issues that popped up in the beginning, and Zoom addressed that, and it didn't go obsolete. So that's where the agility comes in. You need to be agile, you need to be very open, and you need to work with your customers, with your stakeholders again, be it your customers, be it your business, or be it your leaders within the organization, or be it your team, to take your story forward. And yes, you need to have a very compelling story to take it through and then get it passed through them. At the end of the day, uh, business engagement matters, and at the end of the day, it counts a lot when you have a stronger trust developed with your customers. In case of just like in case of FMCG, brands has a very strong, compelling story that goes into the minds of their consumers. So that compelling story has to be there to lock yourself in whether you want to buy a particular brand X or you want to buy a particular brand Y. So that goes also for the IT projects, because for us, our projects, our implementation are our brands. So we need to think of in that mindset to create a story.
So I was saying from where I'm seeing things, I don't think the budgeting has been a challenge. In fact, I've seen more spend on IT than it used to be in the past. The only tilt that I have seen or observed, the budgets now as the CIOs or as technology leaders, I think we have moved more budgets for transformation journeys than compared to a BAU business. But primarily, I don't see any shift or any reduction in the IT budgets. In fact, in my view and how I am seeing things, that the IT budgets has actually enhanced. However, at the same time, while we are enhancing, the expectation is to enable the organization digitally available much sooner than it was in the past. At the same time, be able to deliver an environment on which a digital trust for end user and for the employees can be established. Now, that's a very tall order to establish a digital trust, because you want to make sure that posture is being maintained. At the same time, the experience is seamless. It's as good as saying that I'm going to keep the door closed, but I'm going to let you in seamlessly. It is transforming. I think it is coming out well. I see a lot of trust being established in the society as well. The adoption, broadly speaking, the adoption to digital channels have increased over a period of time. The regulators have played a very main role in the digital adoption, especially in the banking sector. I must envy them that they have played a very strong role in digitizing the economy and helping digital adoption to grow on a phenomenal rate. So that has taken place. Beside that, I don't think there is much to do. The only thing that has happened, that is becoming more challenging, even with the budgets still being available, with the lockdown and travel restrictions, the delivery of the projects have been impacted. In some cases, I think the adoption, the opportunity created with this pandemic, with travel restrictions, I think people have learned the art how to work remotely. In certain cases, that we have seen slightly cost reduction or rather I would use the word cost optimization because now you don't have to have the boarding and lodging and all those expenses being incurred. At the same time, very swiftly and very fast, I think the concept of hot desking is coming in as an organizational culture into the which the adoption of which will have a lot of cost saved in terms of the real estate and power consumption. So we will see an optimization on that side. However, in my humble opinion, I see that while we will adjust the cost on one side, which is the real estate and the power and all of that, the technology budget will continue to rise because to make an enabling environment, the companies need to be technically ready and ensure that the right set of tools are being extended to their employees. Because if you want to create this a touchless experience, if you want to make sure that what Tanveer had talked about earlier as well, the performance KPIs of the employees, if you want to bring that all in, which I call it a digital trust, you need to make sure that your people are technically ready. They've been equipped with the right tool set. So I see a shift that a cost optimization on the real estate side, whereas I see an increase on the budgets on the technology spend, broadly speaking, on the country. And I think eventually, subsequently, the same will happen on the public sector as well as the time moves on. A point in time, I think this will be adopted as a normal BAU. I wish and I pray this pandemic to be over soon. As much as I would love to live my normal life, and we all would love to live our normal life as we used to. But I think few things that we have learned and they will be adopted and they will become part of the culture. Collaboration, I think this has bring in collaboration tools have taken a lot of room. You see a lot of people now collaborating over the tools. So those things will take normal BAU course, and the life, I hope so, at some point in time will become normal.
With that said, I'd like each of you to sort of talk a little bit about, neither of you or your departments will really get those bonus points for achieving, 100% uptime. However, when there is any kind of downtime, it always comes to or is directed to the IT. However, what we'd like to talk a little bit about is that, putting the business in a position where, and trust is one factor, Joe, I think Tanveer sir, aapne kafi us pe emphasize bhi kiya, that anything less that puts the business in a position where there may be a trust compromise, whether it is with customers, whether it is with your internal employees, because everybody is looking at you for their maintenance of 24/7 uptime. Everybody is readily available online all the time. So that dynamic has sort of obviously changed because of work from home and the situation that we are in. How do you, of course, or how do enterprises, rely on these systems more than ever in this year, in 2021, of course, because they have to have that job. Faith ki baat ki, you talked about the faith in even the robustness. How do you see that?
I'll just take up this question to start off. I think that has been there classically. Uptime, availability, integrity, scalability. That parameters have always been there as part of the KPIs for the IT, and they become of significant importance because of this lockdown and the working from home environment. Those. There are two ways to address that thing. One is, yes, the investment in the right infrastructure that Faisal touched upon earlier as part of the other question. And once that thing is in place, then automatically, the improvement starts coming in smaller chunks, but eventually they pays off in a much bigger way. And second aspect is, in terms of the blame game. I think the blame game comes in where there's a lack of trust or where you want to pass on the blame to the other person. And this normally comes when there's a lack of relationship or there's a lack of trust amongst the relationship. So if we are trying to foster an environment or a culture where the people are open, where the people are flexible, where people are willing to understand the other point of view, those things are part of those typical HR cultural stuff that normally organizations normally do, and they have their various initiatives to drive those things. But those again thing also need to go into the element of mental well-being and the mental and the well-being of a person. Because normally when someone reacts in some other way, then that normally happens because he or she is coming in from some background. And so to address those things again, the level of engagement need to be increased. Uh, Having more conversations, having more discussions oriented sessions will help out. Uh, a structured methodology to how can you create a lively workplace within the organization which allows you to speak up and be allowed to discuss and work out a solution rather than focusing on the problems.
Faisal, would you like to add something on the maintenance of the 24/7 uptime that's required, or that's really a burden to your department?
I think the way I would put it is, rather than just being burden, I think this is a psychological thing, because every time when you set a standard, you raise the bar. So I remember so when people had the outages, so they would complain about the outages, and when you reach them and take them to a 99.9% or 99.5% availability, I would still hearing the people complaining about slowness, and it's because then, so from an uptime to a performance to a relative term, it will continue to convert, because every time you reach the maturity curve and you take a leap jump, and you attain a certain level of maturity, you make the end user also have actually reaches that, attains that maturity. At the same time, the expectation changes altogether. And then that expectation will continue to change. I think I would say it has burden, at the same time, I think it is a lot of opportunity there as well, because it keeps you on the toes. It keeps you make sure that you continue to evolve through this process. You make sure that you continue to bring the agility to your infrastructure. You make sure that you continue to adopt technologies that will continue to ensure a better, improved service levels. So I see that as an opportunity more of as a burden. That's my view from where I see, because that doesn't let you get into your comfort zone. And being stay out of your comfort zone is something that I always envy and I always advocate, because that means that you as an organization, then as an individual, you are continuously as part of the learning curve. So that's how I see the service levels. Even at the 99.99%, the expectation will rise. If you recall, some point in time back, I don't want to ascertain anything out of that conversation, but back in 2005, when you had back in 1996, when we had a dial-up modem connecting to the internet, and you wait 30 seconds to 1 minute just to connect to the internet. And today, your expectation is that the moment it is connected, it is the computer is switched on, it is connected to the internet. So at that time, you had a 3.33,600 BPS modem, and today your kid would say a 20 MB internet is slow. So it's a relative term, and this will continue to evolve as the technology improves. I think with the adoption of 5G over a period of time, we'll again have a big leap jump into this. So it's an ever-evolving thing. I see it as challenging. I don't see it as a burden. That's my view, and I think we all should see it from this point of view, because that's the room of improvement will always be there.
I think this, just adding on to what Faisal mentioned, there's expectation management will always be, it has always been there. He gave good examples of the time of dial-up and going into the type of internet connectivity that we have, but those expectation management things normally have. And I still recall most of the companies right now also are using their own dashboard to publish the uptimes and all those things. Even the business looks at them, but when something goes bad, no one is bothered about what has been. IT is seen as when you open up a tap of water, the water should come up. If the water is not coming, if the water is coming, that means it's part of the job. Nothing special about it. When the water is not coming out of the tap, that means there's an IT problem. There's some issues there. So that's happening, and but a slight change that has happened in this last year is we have seen downtime. One is the cloudification have taken more. Office 365, Google, and all lots of stuff has been there on the online stuff. So when those big giants like Microsoft goes down, or the Google goes down, or Amazon goes down, then it gives a sort of a sigh of relief for those normal IT people. Is saying, okay, no, if that thing goes down, we can't do much on that. There were time when you have got your own email system on premise goes down, and you're more concerned of getting the server up again to make sure your emails start working. And now if the global email goes down, and you can't do much because Microsoft is trying to get it up again, and they are working on it. So those things will always be challenging. We do more and more, and as Faisal said, there'll be more and more demands coming in. So it's an ever going vicious circle, despite all expectation management that one can do.
So on that note, I'd like to sort of take the conversation towards, even when you said, a lot of comments were made about the culture that's also evolved with this whole situation that we've been in for the last, 12 to 14 months. With this comes, it brings in a lot of challenges when it comes to future of work. It brings in challenges when you're talking about burnout, employees really struggling to sort of, be proactive, and are obviously experiencing work fatigue as well. Um, how do you as IT leaders see that you can combat this within the enterprise? As department leaders, you also have to give your teams the flexibility to leave work when necessary. There are high risk discussions happening. A good leader has to sort of cover all corners, right? So you also have to look at, and now, the conversation or the awareness on employee mental well-being is also more and more important, and more sort of in focus. So how do you as the IT leader, being that IT is full of, high stress, high risk decisions, high risk, decisions that you need to take for other employees as well. Put yourself in that place, and, tell us about how you're combating that.
It's just challenging, but yes, as I mentioned earlier, we have learned over last year by being in that environment. Experience of living in COVID has changed the way we relate to our colleagues. And, simply put, COVID has taught us, this COVID has taught us how to be truly human, and it's made a whole world of difference. When we talk about the quality of relationships that we have, be it with our teams or with our business sponsors and so on and so forth. So you're right. When we talk about leadership, be it IT leadership or business leadership, empathy is a word that comes to mind more often, especially when we talk about the last year. And I think that empathy, along with perseverance, along with resilience, along with all those management stuff that you used to have, that should drive your day-to-day daily decisions, especially when you're running that virtual meetings, or you need to be caring enough with the strong faith that if you're taking care of some other person, he's a colleague or your team member, then someone else will take care of you. So it goes hand in hand, and so the level of empathy need to be practiced and need to be visibly demonstrated, because it's more like it catches easily. So it's more if you are actually being empathetic to someone, then automatically other people will be more empathetic to other people. We need to be very cautious of that particular fact that at the end of the day we need to be we are humans, and so we need to ensure the humanity prevails, irrespective of where you are and irrespective of which type of work you are in. So yes, the challenges will remain. There will be issues in terms of people we were having the problem, then you have to manage the absence of them, or especially working from home. There are people when you are actually working and at the same time the internet goes down and things like that, and the important meeting taking place. But again, those things will remain there, but empathy should prevail, and empathy should be a driving factor in driving those decisions.
And Faisal, I know that you started off talking about that humanity, within the enterprise also for the first time, usko itna zyada rightfully usko wo focus mila hai within an organization. And Tanveer sahab, like you said, this is the first time that everyone has connected with their employees at a very personal level. Otherwise, it was just like, sara din kaam karne, but you don't really know what challenges, what kind of like lifestyle they live, because, it's sort of like get the work done and sort of move on. Faisal sahab, if you'd like to expand on, of course, as an IT leader, how you are responsible for navigating this within the enterprise, keeping in mind that employees will come in with all sorts of requests, challenges, and genuine reasons, of course, that COVID has brought to all of us.
Thank you, Akshay. I think Tanveer has covered a lot of ground. So empathy is continued to be the main nucleus of every conversation that takes place around that. At the same time, I think as leaders, we all need to understand this thing that with all this flexibility, work from home and all of that, at the same time, we need to ensure that the privacy of individuals as employees is well respected. So availability of Zoom does not translate into that just because as a leader or as a head of the department, I'm available at 9 o'clock. I expect everybody to join the call at 9 o'clock in the night. So we need to bring in that level of discipline that we maintain and we give. So you need to create a collaborative environment, yet at the same time disciplined enough that the privacy and private life of those individuals is not breached, which is very, very important. Because yes, we have now, everybody has a collaborative tool, but we need to navigate this through within the organization that a work-life balance is well maintained. At the same time, we need to ensure that the message is cascaded well below. And it is okay for you, for an organization or for a boss to make sure to have a conversation with their employees while it is work from home. At the same time, flexi hour does not have any problem to be adopted at the same time by the bosses. But as long as you can create the right equilibrium that everybody can maintain, because some of your employee base may turn out and they may have a challenge of, like we said earlier, majority of our workforce may not have luxury of having 4-bedroom houses or a separate study room in their house. And you need to be cognizant to that fact that as an organization and as a leader, you understand their problem that the kids may have a class from 9 to 12, and it is okay if it is not very critical. They can start their work from a time when they can maintain that privacy, but yet deliver exactly what needs to be delivered. At the same time, the leaders need to coach their people that this work from home culture brings far more responsibility on the individual. And as an organization, as individuals, the maturity needs to come in. So honesty is one part, and the maturity is on the other part, that how maturely, independently you own the problem, and then you say that, okay, now I'm going to independently deliver it. I'm not going to, nobody needs to motherhood me for me to deliver this. As a mature person, I'm going to take the lead. I'm going to make sure that this deliverable gets done. I need to make sure that I need to give in the time. So whether it is 8 hours or 6 hours a day, whatever the day every organization may have, if the organization gives you that flexibility, you need to make sure that with the level of maturity, you need to give in those hours and give in those productivity. So as long as you can cover that canvas, and leaders needs to coach their people that how you need to address, it is very, very important that we understand the challenges of our people. Because if the leader would not understand what your workforce is challenged with, you will not be able to navigate through the problem. So you can't just stand up and say, okay, I want this done. You also need to understand that problem that he or she might be on the other end, might be having. And you need to make sure that you give a facilitation role, that how we solve that problem, yet still get this task being delivered. So this is the role of the leaders has slightly changed. I think over a period of time, it was anywhere from a leadership, it was more of a supportive leadership. And I think now it is more the empathetic leadership also has actually come into join the support part. The empathy is also joined into the leadership. So the two combine together, and that's how you need to lead the teams.
Absolutely. So thank you. I think that's it from our end. If there's any closing comment that either of you would like to give.
I think the closing, I think we've covered all the things, and the good part was that, we start our discussion with the trust, and frankly speaking, what just Faisal mentioned about the shift from the time-oriented to the task-oriented methodology of working, wherein people are working more remotely, then the trust between the co-workers, I think, become more important than ever. you need to trust your person, be it part of your team or your colleague. If he's facing some challenges, then we need to trust him or her and give him or her that space so that they can deliver. This indeed is a time where we haven't seen in our life. I don't think so. We're going to have, or our kids will going to be seeing these type of challenges that we are going through right now. So it's
Inshallah, we
very
hope
crucial
not.
to adopt very, inshallah they won't. And so it's very crucial that we should adopt very quickly. I think I talked about the agility and flexibility. So adaptability comes the same way. We need to adopt quickly. We need to embrace new technologies. We've seen people now getting more into using digital tools and getting more digital savvy. Digital banking is one thing, that we got a huge push in terms of digital banking in the last year. And we need to adjust our mindset. We need to get, what Faisal mentioned, from a supportive to the empathetic mindset. We need to have the flexibility of mindset in ourselves because, what you give, it comes back to you because at times you will be also be needing your support despite the fact that you feel that okay, you have got everything. At times things change and you need the support from your surroundings. So the entire ecosystem has to evolve and inshallah it will evolve as we go forward. You can see that well, last year we have learned a lot. And now with this third wave, we are more prepared. In a way, at least, people, the fear of vaccination is getting lesser and lesser. People are getting more into vaccinations. Well, the rush has, the people have started now flooding after seeing the videos from India coming in. So they now want to get the vaccinated quickly. So those things are changing. So eventually that culture of trust will foster within the nation, within the organization, within our own teams. And that will be the big help to us.
So were you adding something or should we move to
No, I'm fine. I think I will only emphasize on the closing side that we all need to embrace the growth mindset. It's the best thing that one can bring in as an organizational cultural change. Fundamentally, it gives you the power how to quickly adapt. So as a human nature, and the human nature is that it is very adaptive. So today I'm very adaptive because I'm sitting in the office. Tomorrow when I'm exposed to sun, my body will automatically get acquainted to it and it will start adopting the nature accordingly. The growth mindset is the same fundamentals that how quickly you make your organization learn and unlearn new things and adopt to the changing culture. So if I would strongly urge that leaders must adopt and ensure that we inculcate the culture of growth mindset within the companies and within the ranks of the company, which will we can reap a lot of positive energy out of that, and I think we will have an exponential growth.
Absolutely, inshallah. I think over the years, we've engaged with a lot of CIOs over the years, but this is the first year I think where we've engaged with CIOs and actually talked about the human element of the IT department or of the enterprise, and that's something that's also changed for us. We've also learned so much hearing from people like yourself who have the industry experience to really bring that change just within the enterprise. It's the change management or the change agents within your own enterprise who are driving this transformation, and it's not just a digital transformation. I think it's a complete transformation of the enterprise. With that, I'd just like to thank both of you for your time today. We understand that your preparedness of the gradual return to the hybrid world of in-person and remote work, that I hope that this allows more businesses to use these learnings and these findings, of course, while withstanding an increasing need for resilience and offsetting security threats that exist within an enterprise. So thank you both of you for your time. We've just heard from CIO UBL and CIO United Energy, Pakistan. Thank you, Mr. Khawaja Tanveer, Saleem, and Mr. Faisal Anwar. With this, I'd like to sign off and say Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz, Aksa. Allah Hafiz, Faisal.
Allah Hafiz, Tanveer. Allah Hafiz, Aksa.